So as we know, professional wrestling is all about moments. We have our favourite matches, but if something doesn't hit us in our tum-tum and make us emotional, then it's not really sports entertainment. So as we have arrived at the end of 2024, I am the bored idiot, Simon Miller. Here's my 10 favourite wrestling moments of 2024. There's no need to point. Number 10 kind of takes a few things and throws them into one, but I think that's one of the reasons we enjoyed them so much, because it did keep happening, and it is all the entrances that Jey Uso had. Now, I don't think when the Bloodline concept started a few years ago, anybody thought Jey Uso was going to reach the heights that he did do. Whereas now, in hindsight, we look at it like, how did we not see this? Because the guy is just so damn likable. And whether it was in Backlash or the other overseas ones, they escaped my mind right now. But you can take all of that and you could take it into Continental title win, and you could just throw it into a lovely, neat package because it was just so nice to watch. And I believe it was October 2024 where he sold more merchandise than Roman Reigns and CM Punk. And that's the point of professional wrestling. It's to get over and it's to be popular. I know people want to talk about the WrestleMania 40 match with his brother Jimbo Uso. It was what it was. Not everything could be a home run. I think it got overly criticized. But that's kind of a good thing. I mean, we have expectations, and those expectations weren't met. And on the other end, you're always going to give it a bit more of a kicking. But entrances in wrestling are amazing because you can watch them over and over again, and they somehow give you the goosebump reaction even though you're just the observer. And the run that Jey Uso went on in 2024, I think come 2028 you'll be sitting there one day, you think, man, maybe I'll watch that Backlash entrance again. And obviously he's got the taunt with his arms and he comes through the crowd. It's just wonderful. And even though that IC championship reign only lasted a few weeks, it proved that he can be a singles guy, but it also tied into the story overall. So it wasn't like we just did it because this will be funny, but obviously, you know, we got screwed over by the Bloodline. So I thought it was brilliant. And Jey Uso is now one of my guys, which wasn't the case in 2023, I do not believe. He's one of these dudes that I will run through walls for because I want to support him as much as possible. And it's genuinely exciting to see what he does in 2025 because he should win either the IC or the US Championship again and have a proper run with it. And I want to see what that's going to look like. A thumbs up for Jey Uso. And number 9, this is why I love pro wrestling, because we do a 180. Now, I know it's not for everybody, but if you watch any of my list, you know that I'm trying to throw my own personality in there, or my own loves in there, because otherwise what's the point? And it's Hangman Adam Page burning down Swerve Strickland's house. It just brings up so many questions. Why wasn't he arrested? Why is he an arsonist? Why do some of us still cheer him? Because if you are burning down people's houses, you shouldn't be a good person. And I get it. There is a line to all of this. And some people feel like that's crossing over too much into, just use the term, sports entertainment. But it's the major reason I watch professional wrestling, because when I do sit down, I suspend my disbelief and I pretend it's all on the up and up. So I may as well be watching soccer or football or NFL or NBA. But then you get something like this, and you're almost like snap back into reality. Oh yeah, this is absolutely absurd. But it's wonderful. And I love the way that it was shot. I love that the Hangman just sat there. 2 things. He sat down in front of it and had some whiskey or whatever the hell he was drinking. And he filmed all of this too. So he was happy to film himself doing a crime. Obviously, we have the crime counter over on What Culture Wrestling Ups and Downs. Make sure you subscribe to them. Please do subscribe to me as well. And it's just terrific. And the way I always look at it is, would I want wrestling to get rid of all that stuff? And no, I wouldn't. So I know loads of you are face palming right now and probably leaving a comment. That's fine by me. Call me an idiot. That's totally cool. But I really would not be as big a wrestling fan if it wasn't. If it wasn't for stuff like this. I mean, ultimately, I get they hate each other within the realms of the story, and I get they're going to have a match. I still don't think you should be burning down somebody's house. Just beat him up a little bit. Obviously, Swerve kind of got involved in that too. So I think it's wonderful. I think it's terrific. I think it's funny. I like the fact that when non-wrestling fans watch this, they're outraged. This is so dumb. What is wrong with you? Everything is wrong with me. But obviously, Hangman Adam Page takes that cake because, once again, he burned down somebody's house. So terrific, as far as I'm concerned. Brilliant, heartwarming, ironically, fun. Never stop doing it. And if 2025 people want to come up with even more dumb things, Simon Miller will be into it. Number 8 kind of follows on that same tact. I mean, I guess it's what WWE does within that realm. It is full on the entertainment of sports. And it's everything with Dominic Mysterio, Rhea Ripley, and Liv Morgan. Specifically at SummerSlam when Dom finally revealed, I'm not actually with you, Rhea. I'm going heel, even though I'm already heel. The infamous double heel turn. And obviously he made out with Liv Morgan at ringside. And I know it's a little bit soap opera. It's a little bit silly. It's a little bit Days of Our Lives. But who didn't want that? Like, ever since we started telling the story, it was quite obvious where it was going. That's not a problem. It's obvious because it's good storytelling, and we're just used to these narratives that they've been told before. And maybe towards the end of the year, I understand this is a criticism that happens online a lot. Maybe we didn't pull the trigger at the right time, or maybe it got a little bit laborious. That's not a word, but I've just made it up and we're going to go with it. But I still liked it and I still enjoy it. And I think everybody benefited. Rhea Ripley, again, massive star, will be even bigger next year. Liv Morgan, I think, has been the best run of her career. And Dominic Mysterio, I think, has told everybody one day he really could be a top-tier babyface, or at the very least to be a top-tier guy on either side. And he's probably going to be a future world champion. I think he does have that in him. And I think a lot of it has come from the way he treated both of them, his stupid mullet, his wonderful moustache. Like, there's a lot of tick boxes here, and I just think when WWE especially, because I think it is sort of more in their ballpark, does this right, it's just fun, and it's just entertaining. And of course I love the matches, and of course I love the more hard-hitting, serious stuff, but you could still make an argument this is pretty serious, right? Rhea Ripley loved Dominic Mysterio, and he stabbed her in the back. And also, if you're part of this Rhea Ripley needs to sell more, well, she sold this, she was really sad. And what's selling more than that? I mean, okay, you get punched in the face and, oh my gosh, my face hurts. Man, we can all get over that. But if somebody breaks your heart, that's going to wound you for life. Rhea Ripley, the character, could be 92 years old and she'll be over a nose injury, she'll be over an arm injury, but she will always remember that Dominic Mysterio ruined her life from an emotional point of view. So, again, I always go, do I want this to go away from wrestling? No, I don't. And I remember at SummerSlam, everybody was into this. It was the first match of the show. And when Dom and Liv did make out, everyone was like, oh, I can't believe it, and reacted like a bunch of, I don't know, old age pensioners watching their favorite program that they do every single week. So top tier stuff for me. Really enjoyed it. And again, let's do more of this in 2025. Just think it makes wrestling better. Number 7, we'll also wind people up. Again, you need to understand what I like if you are going to watch my content. And I do understand the counterpoint to this. Because AEW bringing in Okada, you want that New Japan top-tier star Okada. I actually think we're heading in that direction now, but I will never complain about this because this would never have happened. Maybe not even in WWE, or maybe in WWE. There's no two ways to tell. But he came in and Okada decided, you know what? I'm just going to be the biggest idiot ever. Listen, this is a hard thing to pull off. You can't just tell someone you're going to be a bit of a dingus and all of a sudden they're able to make that work. And that's why I liked it so much. I think it showed that Okada is a way better performer than some people gave him credit for, and all the goofy stuff that he did. The dancing with Mercedes Moné when he got all flustered because he secretly fancied her. The bit when he turned off Max Caster's rap like, oh, I didn't know. I didn't mean to push that button. All the times he said bitch, which was just so damn dumb. And one of my matches of the year, you can watch that video maybe now, it will be up soon, is the Casino Gauntlet from All In. And Okada is a huge reason for that. All the stuff that he did, his facial expressions, his reactions, I do totally understand we need to get to Rainmaker Okada probably sooner rather than later just to give a bit more star power to AEW. I'm never going to get mad at this run. Everything he did with the Elite made me laugh. It made me smile. Once again, I mean, I don't even know how I thought about this, but maybe old Simon didn't actually think Okada had this in him, and more for me. I genuinely think it'd be awesome. He was never a heel because he was too damn funny. But I bet if I went back across sort of the last 12 months, there's going to be a bunch of segments that I've totally forgotten. And I like Okada anyway, as far as I'm concerned. He is one of the best wrestlers of all time. But for my own passions, it's not the right word, my own sensibilities, you fill in the word there, fill in the blanks, it just moved him up another notch. I suppose in many ways, a bit like when Ospreay came to AEW, and people, oh, he's not going to be able to cut weekly American star promos. And he was just fine. And he is just fine. Same with Okada, like, oh, he's never going to be able to do the entertainment side of wrestling. Yes, he can. And now we can move on for that. Sure, that's fine. I'll have these memories for life, but it had to get in here. If you make me laugh that much, you get a couple of thumbs up. Number 6, we go back to WWE, and I think we can all agree with this because it was just a good pivot, maybe one of the best pivots of all time, and it's The Rock going heel and becoming the final boss. Now, I remember I was actually away the weekend, the whole what we want Cody stuff kicked off, and I was glued to my phone, even though I was in the middle of nowhere and couldn't get a signal. But I just couldn't believe it carried or garnered so much traction as quick as it did, especially because we're talking about The Rock here. We're talking about Dwayne Johnson, one of the biggest stars in the world. But that's what wrestling fans are all about. They pick their person. They were completely right too. I was one of them. You know, we decided that Cody Rhodes has to finish his story at WrestleMania 40. Otherwise, we're leaving it way too long. And that's massively important in wrestling. If you miss the peak or you miss your moment, you are then scrambling. When you finally pull the trigger, it doesn't feel as good because I guess it's like when people pop in a match. Like, that's what any sort of super hard and smart wrestling trainer will tell you. If you think you've just got the biggest pop of the match, make the cover there. Otherwise, your match is just going to be on a downward trend because the whole point is to raise the audience up to a fever pitch, then make them go, way, it's over. I had a wonderful time. But The Rock being smart enough to understand this and becoming the final boss, the best version of The Rock we probably had since 2002. And there was nothing wrong when he used to come back as Dwayne The Rock Johnson, I suppose. But The Rock character is always better like this, as a dude that doesn't care, going to whoop your ass, going to be sort of cheeky and insulting and funny, all in unison. And I think Hollywood Rock was the last time he did that. I don't think I'm thinking of anybody else. The John Cena stuff is really good, but that feels like John Cena and Dwayne Johnson having out their real-life problems on television, which, again, absolutely brilliant. Super good feud when you go back to it. Probably didn't need the second match, but different story for a different day. Whereas now, it really did feel like we'd gone back to sort of the late 90s, early 2000s. And yeah, just to double down on what I just said, this is what the Rock character should be like. And Dwayne Johnson doesn't need film advice from me, but it's kind of a character he should probably play in the movies. I think he'd be amazing as a villain in one of these movies that he does do, but it was just so good. And I guess if we're talking about the moments, it would be outside of Cody's bus, whipping him with the belt as we got blood, which we don't rarely see in WWE, as he shouted about Mama Rhodes and how he's going to beat up Cody's mum. What a flubbed up thing to say. Even saying it out loud then sounds totally deranged. But I think it was so good. We don't know what his involvement is going to be with WrestleMania 40, but nobody is going to want him to come back as anything else but the final boss, because it was totally tremendous. So I really do hope we carry this on. I had a really fun time with it, and I think it kind of goes to show you can say whatever you want about The Rock. He totally gets professional wrestling, and he's pretty damn good at it. And number 5 is a very recent one, snuck in there in the last month of 2024, and it was the New Day deciding, man, we're going to become a bunch of Sith Lords and go mega heel. I just didn't see it coming. Right, we talked about obvious storytelling earlier, but of course there's always an exception to that rule. And Xavier Woods and Kofi Kingston having their 10-year celebration and bringing Big E out and being like, man, you stabbed us in the back because you broke your neck. The amount of iconic lines that came from this, like Kofi Kingston going, you broke your neck, so what? That is going to be meme for ages. Big E's expression, if you want to send someone showing that you're sad, just send in their face, his face, I should say. It was just 3 terrific performances. And then you also had that shock and that feeling in your tum-tum when you were like, is this actually happening? We're actually healing on Big E of all people? And it opens up the door for so many things. I mean, it sounds like Big E still isn't cleared. But if one day he is cleared, if he comes back, well, there's 2 ways you could go with it, right? He could get his revenge, everybody will love it. He could join up with them and go, yeah, you are right, which I think would floor people. We like, I can never watch this again. It's too heartbreaking. But to find a way to revive the New Day after a decade in WWE takes some truly special talents, which I think they all are. I never think they get their due. And some people like to pretend that Kofi Kingston's not a good heel. I think he's tremendous. He's such an asshole. And Xavier Woods is just brilliant. So I think it could be one of the best segments of Raw ever. I remember I said this on the internet at the time, and Sean Ross Sapp corrected me, and he was totally right. And I was like, oh, this is one of the best modern day segments. It's like, isn't it not a best day segment of all time? I was like, damn it, Sean. You're 100% right. And it does what wrestling should do. It makes you feel something, to go back to the intro. And that's why sometimes shows ending on a downer is massively important, or your favorite not winning is massively important, as long as the story eventually is going to take you to where you want to go. It's the Empire Strikes Back, right? You've got to hit rock bottom. You've got to feel things. You've got to hate people. You've got to like people. And then we can establish the good guys from the bad guys. But I don't think WWE could have done it better. Once again, I think it's right up there with some of the segments we've talked about for the last 10, 15, 20 years. And only the New Day could have pulled it off, given their relationships and their personalities and everything they have done over the last 10 years. It is a 5-star performance. And number 4, again, is sort of like a culminative one. It's everything with CM Punk versus Drew. There are so many things you can talk about. The promos they did. You know, Drew McIntyre going to Mindy's Bakery, mostly everything that Drew McIntyre did on social media. Then there's the Hell in a Cell match itself, which obviously served as the final point to all of it. And what a full stop to do. It probably is the feud of the year. I mean, we have to sit down and really think about this. But I think one of the reasons it does take the nod over other things is because of how it started. In January, when Punk got injured, I don't think Drew versus CM Punk was on the radar for WWE. We were quite clearly going in the Seth Rollins direction. But then that did happen, and WWE once again pivoted, something they did very well in 2024. And you got this amazing thing where you could totally believe that they hate each other. And as soon as you can do that, you can go, oh, he definitely doesn't like him. You're in, right? It doesn't actually matter what they say or what they do, because every little thing that does come out of their mouth and every move they do and every match they do have, you can just suspend your disbelief a little bit harder. And I guess if we're talking about moments, maybe it would be, well, there's a few. Drew McIntyre and Mindy's Bakery cracked me up. I couldn't believe it. CM Punk screwing over Drew at Clash at the Castle 2, that rhymes, so it must be true, which also rhymes. It's a triple rhyme. I loved that because once again, you knew it was going to happen, but it worked so well. And some people thought their, Four Corners match, strap match, sort of maybe didn't move in the direction it should have done. I quite liked it. I like their SummerSlam thing. Just overall, I thought the whole thing was super, super well done. and it re-established CM Punk in WWE. His first feud was always going to do that. And it took Drew McIntyre and made him such a main event player that Drew is now the guy. I remember there was a conversation where people would be like, we've got to put Drew with the top guy, so Drew feels like a top guy. Drew now is that guy. You put people with Drew, and that makes it a main event program. And I really do hope in 2025 he gets a proper World Championship run, which was another moment, right? WrestleMania 40, when Drew McIntyre, two things. First of all, does that texting when he was beating Seth Rollins mid-match, and then when he's won the championship, too obsessed with CM Punk trips him on out of the announce table. Out comes Damian Priest. It gave us so much good quality content throughout the year. I think you have to mention it. It's damn good. When we get to the more obvious one, number 3, and this is doubly special for me because I got to sit front row. I mean, what an asshole I am. You should totally hate me. But it was all in 2024, and it was Bryan Danielson versus Swerve Strickland. And the match is great. Swerve Strickland is great. But it was just Bryan Danielson winning the championship, especially because a month on, 2 months on, John Moxley was going to murder him with a bag. And we may never see him again. Like when Bryan Danielson was doing the promotional work for All In 2025, he said a return full-time is 50-50. He'd love to come back, but he's not 100% sure. And he has nothing else to give. Bryan Danielson has quite literally given everything to professional wrestling, including his own health. But I remember sitting there, and obviously Bree's in the ring, and his daughter's in the ring, and his son's in the ring. And Bryan Danielson, because it's real, is just so good at wearing his heart on his sleeve. So you could just tell how happy he was. And you also knew he didn't want to be in that position because he's a guy that always wants to be beaten. So maybe there was sort of a poetic nature to that as well. But I remember watching all of that and being like, this is what wrestling's all about. I feel good. I feel happy. I can feel his happiness sort of, radiating out across the arena. And he's doing it with his family and his 2 kids who looked over the moon as well. Kind of perplexed as you would be. But it is terrific pro wrestling. And in many ways, this could be number 1. All of my top 3 kind of made me feel the same. And I guess it's because it's personal stories, which, we'll just go straight into it. Number 2 is Cody finishing his story. Because again, while it is wrapped up in pro wrestling lore and narrative, you also know the Cody Rhodes story. Left 2016 because he thought he could be the next John Cena and no one believed in him. Smashed it on the indies, helped create AEW, makes a surprise jump back to WWE, and then you get to April 2024, and he's the WWE champion. And I promise you, apart from Randy Orton, who did say this in many an interview, so that guy knows game, I don't think anybody would have predicted this sort of 8 years ago. I really, really don't. There'll be one guy saying, well, I did. Well, good for you, but I think you'd absolutely in the minority. And to do it in a way where he beats Roman, who's a champion for 1,316 days, and WrestleMania 40, the big 4-0, all of it was just tremendous because you knew how much it meant to the man. And I hate this term, but you had been on his journey with him. And I did follow him because, again, he did a lot in WCPW, so I got to meet him and have some wonderful chats with the dude. He's such a nice person. And then to make it all the way back, and not only in the position that he wanted to be, but then have the run that he did for the next 9 months or whatever and prove that he can draw and sell merchandise, blah, blah. It's just great, which also ties into number 1, which is Sting retiring at Revolution 2024. Now, I think Sting probably gets the nod just because he has been going for 40 years, whatever the flub it was. And I don't think I've ever seen any company, and I'm sure I'm missing something here. The Great Muta was very good as well. But I'm not sure I've seen another company better what AEW did with the retirement of Steve Borden. Here's another guy that wanted to lose and was like, no, Sting, everybody loves you. They want to be happy for you. And to do it against the Young Bucks, who have their own story, and Darby Allin, his fake son, his real sons were in there. They were the tag team champions. They regained that as well. Sting got thrown through glass, which nobody saw coming, which is doubly funny, because when he first got back, everyone was always just going to do cinematic matches. Jump forward 3 years, he's being held through glass. Once again, it just hit me right in my tootsie toes, right in my feelings. And I remember watching that and just feeling great. Sad, because Sting had retired, and Sting is one of the best ever as far as I'm concerned. But it also ties into the fact he had that awful injury in WWE. He got inducted to the Hall of Fame. Kind of felt like he'd been retired, even though he didn't want to be retired. And then, a few years on, he gets to come back and walk off into the sunset on his own terms. How could you have done it better, right? And there was also a sense of jeopardy there, because if you were nerds like us, you knew that Sting was probably campaigning to lose on his way out and do the honors. So when they finally do win, it's just great. It's just wonderful. And even if the Young Bucks got back in the ring and hugged him, I wouldn't have cared. Just destroy kayfabe in front of my eyes. But it was one of those moments where you couldn't have done anything wrong. And listen, Sting can do whatever the hell he wants to do, but I hope he never comes back, because you're not going to be able to top what you did here. And it makes it so wonderful if that is the last that we see of him. We gave him the send-off that he had deserved, given everything that he'd done over the years. And that WWE run, we all know how stupid it was. It wasn't his fault. He was just booked ridiculously. It'd be way better now with the new regime, but it is what it is. And he got to go out on his own terms. comes, and it's brilliant. And I remember thinking that back in February, it's going to be hard to come up with something better than this or make me feel this way. I'm just such a huge Sting guy. So even though we get to December and we had a really good year, I think professional wrestling across the board, be it AEW or WWE, NXT's done really well, New Japan, whatever. You can pick your promotion of choice. There are a bunch of stuff that I'm sure appeal to you in different ways, but nothing, as far as I'm concerned, in 2024 beats the retirement of Sting. Now, of course, there is a bunch of moments I wanted to get in here, but I wasn't able to. Trust me, it kills me. Why haven't I mentioned the Outrunners and how funny they are? That's what the comments are for, so please make sure you drop me some suggestions down there. Obviously, your own suggestions. Like the video, share the video, and subscribe. Click the notification bell. Click the video on the screen for more of my end-of-year lists. Otherwise, you can go to grillandmine.com/Simon to get your supplements of choice. Use code Simon to get 10% off. Patreon.com/Simon316. Simon316 on social media. Simon J. Miller on TikTok. Simon on Cameo. ProWrestlingTees.com/Simon Miller for stupid t-shirts by me. Thank you, by the way, for all the Christmas cameos. They've been very fun to do. Have a happy holiday season if I don't see you beforehand, but I definitely will because I'm on YouTube way too much. I'll talk to you soon.